Welcome back to the Djellab Show, ladies and gentlemen. We're back again. Don't need the clapping. Don't need the clapping. We've got the same group here again. On my left, John, Ciaran and Doogie. Massive, massive. Everyone's links as well, of course, will be in the description below. And on my right, Sonny, Ben and, of course, Liban. Huge. We saw in the last episode, Doogie came out on top. Boom. He battled everyone.
Pens dropped.
Pens flying.
Brilliant. And this one's going to be a little bit different. Less transfers, more about opinions on players and not moves. So hopefully nothing bad about Chelsea, but we will see. Without further ado, let's get on to our first question. Okay guys, the way it's going to work is I'm going to mention a player to you. All you've got to put is over or under for overrated or underrated. And we're going to kick it off with a certain James Maddison. Is he over or underrated? Two Spurs fans here. Someone literally got 3 Ange Postecoglou's on his chest.
Look at him.
But is James Maddison over or underrated? Okay, without further ado, guys, is James Maddison over or underrated?
Against your own player.
Right, I'm ready to argue this one.
Go ahead, Ben, mate.
I actually think Maddison will probably have a more consistent season than last year, but I think he's now at a club and have a squad. We've got a squad now that shows that he's not indispensable. And I think that with the likes of Lucas Bergvall coming through at Spurs, who I think should start tonight, whichever camera, and I think we're probably lost to Leicester by this point. But I just think that the consistency, well, first of all, the inconsistency in his performances is frustrating. He came to Spurs last year, set the league alight, first 10 games, kind of was a bit, kind of reflected Spurs' season a little bit. And I still do really like him as a player. This doesn't mean I don't rate him. I just think that now he's at a point. Leicester, he was the main man. Tottenham last season when he came in, he was, we've lost Harry Kane, who's going to be the talisman. Obviously, we've got Sonny as well, but Maddison coming in, the new number 10. I think the thing that goes against him this season, he's got nowhere to hide now, because I think Spurs have got enough competition in those areas with young players coming through, chomping at the bit, that could potentially show him up as a bit overrated. Again, it's such a tough one.
Doubt.
Because I don't think he's either, but it's more just I think that he's got nowhere to hide now in this Spurs team.
Okay.
I don't want to see the same level of drop-off that I did last year.
Who wants to?
Go on, Les.
Yeah, good. I'll go.
Go on, Sonny.
I think there was moments in the latter half of last season where he had to sort of pull the rabbit out of the hat, and I think with the signing of Dominic Solanke that will improve his game, because there were moments where he's picking the ball up from the halfway line like Harry Kane used to, and it's not working, and I just feel like because he was injured as well, it just wasn't working out for him. I think he's going to have a much improved season because of Solanke, because of Son out on the left, and he can create chances. Various YouTubers have done videos on how Solanke will unlock Maddison. And I feel like, even at Leicester, he was just scrutinised all the time, where at one stage he was like the leading midfielder, English midfielder, and wingers as well, including like Saka, for goals and assists. And I still think he should have gone to the Euros because we were lacking that sort of player who was willing to take on a man in various positions. A Grealish as well could have gone. But I just feel like he gets a lot of stick. I don't know if it's because he's got a bit of a personality or something like that, or because he's English as well. I feel like he gets a lot of stick and people call him overrated because of that.
Okay. Anyone got a way to jump on Maddison?
Yeah.
Tough when everyone's gone for the same one, I do understand.
I think it's difficult with the England thing, isn't it? Because he's just probably not quite the level of a Foden or a Bellingham necessarily. And even in the Premier League, he's probably not as consistent, and he doesn't have as much luck with injuries as De Bruyne. I mean, De Bruyne less so with injuries, but he's not as talented as De Bruyne, Bruno, Odegaard, on the basis of last year, possibly even Palmer. But I do think at his best, which is maybe only comes in short patches per season, he is, I thought up till November last year, he was one of the Premier League's best player. And he can be truly exceptional. And I think people, as Sonny says, slightly pick on him because he does have a personality. He's willing to speak his mind. He's clearly very confident. He's the main man at every roast he goes to. And I think he's an easy target because he's English and he's got a bit of attitude.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I think if he was, he's a type of player that would be appreciated in other nations. So like if he was in La Liga or Serie A, I think he would be appreciated a lot more. I also feel like with Maddison, he's a creative machine. I think it's like his touch, his pass selections, his vision. I think a player like that, I find it hard to see why he doesn't get picked more often for England, especially when that's the type of player that we're crying out for, somebody that can create chances. So I don't know what it is. Like he might be right. I think maybe it's the perception of him that maybe why people undermine him or don't rate him as much. But I think that's a top player there.
Okay, we'll do another player. We won't kick anyone off just yet, just because I feel like there was not enough there to all get involved in the debate. So hopefully this one will change that. But I will keep in mind how that went, obviously, for future points. This player, what did he say?
Ciaran's locking in his previous answer to everything he said.
Well, we'll see whether that works then for this player.
You've got to now.
Because is Trent Alexander-Arnold underrated or overrated?
This one's a hard one.
I don't think it is.
He's Snapchat gamers.
You got something, Diggy?
Yeah, I just don't like it.
Trent Alexander-Arnold, underrated, overrated. He is a bit of a mixture here. A bit of a mixture.
That's a
We've
big
got
over as well.
3 unders and 3 overs. John, why is he overrated?
There's no question in his ability and his talent, but I think we've seen, this is really difficult. I think the reason I put him in the overrated is because we saw with England, we're trying to force him into the team, and we're trying to get him into a position that, you know, he's ultimately, he wasn't seen as good enough to play fullback. So how do we get him into the team? He's one of the underperforming players in the England team in the role that Gareth Southgate tried to squeeze him into 2 games in a row. It didn't go right. The way you hear Liverpool fans talk about him as the best in the world. And I think if he was the best in the world with a year left on his contract, although there have been rumours that he's being sniffed out by Real Madrid, I think he'd be there right now. I don't think with Carvajal aging that he wouldn't be there, and that's my argument, and I'd like someone else to take over because I found this really difficult.
Liban, go on, you've also got over.
I put over because I do feel like, again, like you said, exceptional player. I think Trent is talented. No, he's definitely talented, but I think he's overrated in the sense of where people rank him amongst not just the current crop of players, but also previous. Because you get a lot of people that say that Trent might be the greatest right back in Premier League history. Just purely, and a lot of it, I feel like a lot of it comes down purely because of his creative output. I think if you want to take into his whole game in terms of his defensive side, I think it still needs a lot of work. I think with Trent, he's a player that I feel like even going forward, it doesn't work with every single system, because you see that with England, I think there are other right backs that are a lot more balanced. You've got Kyle Walkers, you've got Trippier's that still, even like Trippier, for example, he can do the creative, he's got that creative output in him, but also defensively, I feel like he's a lot more stronger. So I think the way people talk about Trent, I think he's an exceptional player, world-class player for me, by the way. Trent is a world-class player, but I think if you're trying to rate him amongst the best or amongst all-timers, I think people do overrate him slightly.
Yeah, he's got a bit to prove still.
He's still got a bit to prove, I think.
We'll come to Doogie in a second. Hold your over for a bit. One of the underboys, Ciaran.
I think he's vastly underrated by everyone else, apart from Liverpool fans who vastly overrate him. And I think it's just the both sidings of the extremism of opinion, where you've got to be really far into one side than the other. But ultimately, just don't put him in midfield. That's fine. I think Klopp said something about like why does everyone want to keep trying to force him into, like, he's a really good right back. Like, he's just really good at that. Sometimes he's you know, a bit lax defensively, but who cares? Like, he is his own player and he's absolutely phenomenal. But it's like for example, Kyle Walker, he does not get assists ever. So it's like what player do you want? It might just not fit into the England team, you know, because it's a cup competition. So maybe you don't want a guy walking at the back post. But I just think he's vastly underrated by absolutely everyone because I don't like Liverpool, but I'll admit it, he's brilliant. So he can just absolutely ping a ball. I don't. He's just objectively really bloody good.
Okay, Sundog Snelling, underrated.
I just feel like he's the defence argument, I feel, is another stick to hit another player with. I think it's really unfair. And we haven't seen a right back do something that he's done ever because, you know, as we argued in the other video, the modern fullback is so different now. And yeah, I agree with Ciaran. Don't play him in midfield. And also, you look at that Euro final, both goals were at the fault of Kyle Walker. So he could have played that game and it might have been a different outcome, but obviously it's all hypotheticals. I just think play him at right back. I feel he'll suit this Arne Slot system. Obviously, when it was him and Robertson as well performing at the top level, they were unstoppable, and they've changed fullbacks as well. But yeah, I feel like overrated is harsh because, I mean, I don't like comparing, you know, is he as good as Roberto Carlos or Cafu, because it's like, you know, comparing apples and pears, like we don't know, do we? But yeah, I feel like he's a great level. I think he's still got a lot of potential to still go to that next level. And if he goes to Real Madrid, which is being rumoured, then I worry for Europe.
The world 11 over
The fall of Europe.
Dig, do you want to jump in? Why you think he's overrated? Ben, maybe you can.
I think you can argue very effectively for both arguments because Trent gets extreme takes both ways. So he's like he's overrated against the people that think he's terrible, but he's underrated against the people that probably think he's the best Premier League right back ever. Because I think with the best players ever in the Premier League history, whether it's Henry, De Bruyne, Rio Ferdinand, whoever you want to put in there, you don't really have to caveat their ability. Whereas Trent, I don't think you can be the best Premier League right back ever if you are a little bit deficient in defending, which is a big part of being a right back, obviously. So I think he's overrated against the people that say that, which is what I ultimately went for. But obviously, he's an exceptional player.
Yeah, I think with his defending as well, and obviously I put him as underrated. I think the defending argument has become a bit of a tired stick to beat him with, and I actually think it's become quite lazy in the sense that people go so in on it to the point of like he cannot defend 1v1. That's just not true. People kind of just put more of a lens on the games that he has, where he does struggle. Also, the quality of winger that we're kind of talking about in Europe now is scary, that he's kind of coming up against. And that's not just to stick up for him, because every fullback has to deal with these wingers. But I think people just choose to highlight that because that's their kind of agenda. And he does fall somewhere kind of in the middle. He's very polarising, like you said. He's kind of underrated by the people that don't think he's good at all, overrated by the people that think he's just incredible. I think one thing we saw yesterday with Haaland, when those numbers flashed up on the screen that he'd scored, 90 goals in 99 games for City, those numbers are so good that people have almost forgot how good he really is. And I think it's the same with Trent. When you go back to Trent and Robertson, that year that Liverpool were first really pushing for the title under Klopp, and then the year that they won it, the numbers that Trent was putting up was absolutely ridiculous. And I kind of feel like it's just been forgotten, and he'll be one that we look back on in 10 years. I know there's been this thing of trying to force him into the England team. He'll be the next Gerrard, Lampard kind of player where it's like, well, how didn't it work? How didn't it work for England? And I know, I totally agree with what everyone said about just playing at right back, don't need to force him in there. But he is that good where you can see why people have tried to build a team around him. I think he's that good. He's world class.
He's a system player.
But that's what makes it overrated, though. I think that's what makes him overrated. I think we don't need to fit him in because we have so many good right backs that can do that. For example, we haven't even spoken about him, but Reece James is another one as well. Reece James is somebody that I think. Yeah, but that's the thing. But people still, till now, even with Reece James not playing much, people still say that Reece James is better than Trent. Some people try to argue that because of the fact that his game is more balanced. You would even argue that Reece James might still be higher than him in the pecking order when it comes to England. So I just feel like with Trent, having to try to fit him in when you already have options at right back, you've got options in midfield, to me that's what kind of makes him overrated. It's like you don't need to be doing all of that. You're actually making it's more detrimental to the team trying to fit him in than just having him on the bench or just having him as an option.
We'll end it there. I'm not so sure about the Real Madrid thing. I think he will go Real Madrid.
Yeah, I think he will.
I think I can see it.
I think he will.
It'd be stupid not to.
He's done it all, but that's a different one. We're going to give some points out then over those two kind of suggestions. Taking home 6 points, Ben. Well done, my friend. Well done, my friend. Taking home 5, Dougie Critchley. 4, Sonny Selling. Ciaran with 3. John's taking 2. Liban.
Oh,
I'm very sorry.
No, it's okay. It's all right.
We'll give you the clap. I was going
to say the comeback's on, it's not.
What a boy. Give you the clap.
We'll give you the clap.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, maybe not the best wording there. Okay, lads, we're going to do another player for overrated or underrated here. And this one is Bruno Fernandes. Is he overrated or underrated, lads?
Let's go out in a blaze of fire.
Guys, Bruno Fernandes, is he overrated or underrated? He is over. Okay, nice.
I've agreed with Snelling.
Tag team.
Ciaran, you can kick it off as well, mate. You can kick it off, Ciaran.
You had another word on there under that.
Yeah, I said he has great teeth. I just think because he constantly gets sort of compared to De Bruyne, And I just don't think you'll ever get anywhere near that sort of level of class. He's fine, but I don't think he's consistent enough in his very good performances to warrant being underrated. I just think he's good, and that's it. I wouldn't have him in. I don't know whose else team I would put him in and be like, yeah, he's starting.
As in
yours, actually.
So you think he wouldn't get into any other
He'd probably
team?
get in Fulham's team.
Not in the top 4.
He'd get in our team.
Would he?
Over Madison.
I don't think he'd
Yeah,
fit.
but you're
He
like
wouldn't fit the
fit.
system.
Yeah.
Go on then, if you want to add to the over argument, Sonny, why is he overrated?
I think he's a disgrace, first of all. Like, he's one of the worst Premier League captains of all time. Like, you know, Manchester United are
He's
such a...
going out with blazing glory.
Like, Manchester United is such a historic club with amazing captains from Bruce to Keane to Neville, and he just takes that mantle and destroys it every game he plays. I just feel like the diving, the petulance, the moaning, and also he just plays games like it is score hero. He just will pick the ball up, try and ping it, take on countless players, and I just don't see. I agree with Ciaran. I feel like in Manchester United's team where it's so erratic and the attackers are just, you know, they've got to pull, you know, rabbits out the hats to make something work week in, week out. I don't see him working in many other teams. You put him in City, I just don't see how he's not regimented enough. Even with us, I feel like Ange would ask him to track back, he wouldn't do it. And, you know, he does put up nice numbers, but I just feel like United, it is a basket case of a club, and he is the king.
Your problem with him is personal, then. Yeah. And also, a player like Fernandes, if he played for Spurs, you'd love it.
Yeah,
Everyone
100%.
likes
He
the shit
turned us
house.
down,
You just
so this
don't
is
like
where
it
the
against
fuel
you.
of the fire is coming.
Yeah,
So.
but
This
that's
was
the
me with
thing.
Neto
I think
earlier.
ultimately, like he's a player that could fit in, going against your argument, Ciaran, to a lot of top Premier League sides. I think his shortcomings come down to Manchester United being a mess over the last
Yeah, but he's
decade
part of that.
or
He's
5
still-
years of however long he's been there, but they've been a mess for longer. But yeah, but he's not part of the problems at Manchester United for me. He's potentially part of the big solution. You know, I think he is captain for a reason there. His numbers don't lie. Like you said, he put up great numbers. That's quite important in an attacking midfield role or a midfield role. You know, he does get goals and assists. He's a player that I think if he had gone to Manchester City instead of Manchester United, we'd be talking about 5-time Premier League winner. He'd still be there now. He'd be a different player. I think the managers and the systems at Old Trafford have let him down. And I think they're lucky that he signed a deal there to stay. I think he's underrated for those reasons and more. Yeah.
I agree. I think his inconsistency is kind of a product of the environment that he is in. Because I think that if you took Fernandes out of that United team, even though he has had patches of bad form, and yeah, the petulance, I get that. But again, like John says, if he played for your team, like you would love him. That's someone that, you know, that's someone that you can kind of pin your hopes on to drag you out of a poor performance. He has got that moment of magic, and his game is about output. Playing in that number 10 position, you can maybe. I know everyone says that top level teams don't have passengers anymore. But again, I think he almost can look a bit like a passenger sometimes because of the product of that really inconsistent, unstable Man United environment. Whereas I think that with him, the good very much outweighs the bad. That output has been so strong. Again, a bit like the Trent point earlier. Like, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure the numbers that he's been putting up over the last couple of years, if that was De Bruyne or if that was another player, it's just about the perception. I think he's very irritating. He's very, very irritating when he's on the football pitch. But he's not the only one. And I think, again, that the level of scrutiny generally in the media over Man United over the last couple of years, which has been valid because they have been a bit of a basket case, but I feel like criticism of him during that has been unfair. At times I understand why people want him as the captain to step up and maybe not act the way he does in certain games, but I think a lot of it's born out of frustration because why aren't these players doing what I want them to do and, you know, helping me to be the player that I want to be?
But as a captain, should he be? I know that's you saying that.
I think he leads by example a lot. I do think he, in terms of his performances more often than not, and I just think that if there was I actually think, kind of Liban was saying it earlier before he left, I do think everything's a bit calmer at United going into this year. And I'm not saying that they're going to definitely finish in the top 4, but I do think once you get that more stable United, with Ineos now, with the right kind of signings being made, no panicking, he's obviously committed to a new contract. I think, like John says, the future there is a lot brighter because of him being a part of it. And he's not, you know, as the captain, he should be the main man, but not just with him, but I think he has a massive, massive role in it.
Anything to add, my friend?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I saw people, including from SDS last year, saying that they wanted Bruno, Rashford gone, that they'd be one of the first people that you'd want to sell. For me, after Mainu and Garnacho, who came through the academy, or at least Garnacho spent time in the academy, Bruno would be the last person I'd want to get rid of if I was a Man United fan. I think, yeah, I mean, we talk about availability for other players as well. I think he missed, prior to missing a game last year, that was his first game that he ever missed in his entire career. So I think he's missed now 2. And he plays every game for club, every game for country. I think he's fully committed. Yes, there's been some bad moments in big games, but I think Man United have been, they lost 7-0 to Liverpool not that long ago. They have been embarrassing in big games, and yes, he's been a part of that. But I think things would have been worse without him, considerably. And actually, given the amount of money that they spent on it, which was only about £45 million, I think he's paid that back and more. I think he's definitely underrated.
Okay, lads. The scores for that round. Taking home 6 points is Jonathan. Smash that. Well done, my friend. Ben, you're taking home 5. Doogie taking home 4. Sonny with 3. Ciaran with 2. That does mean that Ben is currently leading on the charge with 11 points. We've then got Doogie on 9. John on 8. Sonny Snelling on 7. And unfortunately, Ciaran, it does mean you're going home on a score of 5.
You lost to Bruno Fernandes.
I'm just going to sit here.
I'm not leaving.
It needs the exit. It makes it more significant.
The great shift.
It makes it more significant.
Gotta go.
Oh, dropped his tissue as well.
Oh, that's the main one.
All right, lads, one more player that we're going to do here. It is none other than Mr. Declan Rice for Arsenal Football Club. Is he overrated or underrated? He transferred to them for over £100 million. Has he been worth that? Is he underrated or overrated? Has he made Arsenal better? Without further ado, please reveal your boards. Ooh, one person with overrated. The rest all underrated. I think, Ben, if you start off making your point and the guys can chip in against you.
I think it's a bit like the Trent conversation. I think he might be underrated by a lot of other people, but Arsenal fans overrate him incredibly highly. And I think that, again, we don't really know what his best role is in that Arsenal team yet. I think there was those constant comparisons with Rodri last year. I think, again, we spoke about it in the previous video in terms of, I think Rodri has kind of redefined what that role is. And I'm just not sure Rice is actually as close to that level as Arsenal fans think he is. He's a very good player, don't get me wrong. And I think in terms of the lack of quality, or lack of top-class quality in that position, well worth the £100 million fee. Again, he might not have taken them. Well, he technically did kind of take them closer in terms of points to City, in terms of bridging that gap. He still hasn't made them, Arsenal, take that step up yet in terms of being title winners. But that's not just down to him, but I just think, again, it's how Arsenal fans talk about this guy. I just don't quite see it in the same way that other players in that position deserve the praise that maybe someone like Rice gets.
But you can't just compare him to Rodri, who is the best player in world football.
But he's the bar for that position.
You're comparing him to, yeah, he's the bar, but that's a high bar. Like, Rodri is the best player in world football. Like, that, for me, he's probably the Ballon d'Or favourite.
Most important, I think.
And the most important, I think that it's unfair to just directly go, well, people put Declan Rice in conversations like that naturally because he plays the same position for a title rival. So he's not as good as Rodri, so therefore he's overrated.
I don't think he's overrated, but I wouldn't personally say I think he's overrated. I just think he's overrated by Arsenal fans. I think the way they kind of talk about this guy, I think we did actually see some on-the-ball limitations in the Euros with England as well. I think he got exposed in some of those games. I don't think he's quite as calm. Again, you say about Rodri, the reason he gets compared to Rodri is because they are title rivals. That is the most important position on the football pitch. And I think for Arsenal fans to put him in that conversation, that to me highlights that he is overrated. I don't necessarily think, I don't know, it is a difficult one. But again, I think it just comes down to the perception and how fans talk about him. I just don't think he's quite at that same level, to the point where I might not even say that he's world class. I don't think he's quite there yet.
Outside of Arsenal fans, he's constantly, people bring him down, mainly around the price tag, which is out of his control. But people do, I mean, I think you brought up his limitations in the Euros. Okay, maybe he could add a little bit more direct passing between the lines. But when I watch the games, when I watch Declan Rice, he's retaining possession, and I'm hearing, oh, he's always going sideways, it's lazy. It's like, that's his job, is to retain possession. He's not there to ping a Trent-style pass across the pitch and find Saka. but I still think he has that in his locker, and he could add a little bit more to that. On top of that, I think he plays defensive role that isn't really his best position. I think he could be unlocked better if Arsenal did sign a DM. So I think for those reasons, for me,
it's been mentioned a couple of times as well, but just that £100 million fee, like the pressure that brings, swapping 2 London clubs, sort of not big rivals in terms of history, but rivals. And I think he made it look very easy, to be honest. I don't think he struggled at that step up at all. Seemingly when, the same when he played for England. I think he's kind of, he didn't necessarily have the best Euros, but he's never really taken a backward step in his career. And I think you look at the amount of £100 million signings that have recently not worked out as well as people expected in the Premier League. Caicedo, Fernandes, Grealish. I think Rice is the obvious candidate, and except for Mbappe, who was 160 about 5-6 years ago, there's very few £100 million signings that work out, and it does bring a lot of pressure, and I thought he did really well with it.
Felix, Coutinho, you could just keep going with 100. There's rare that there's ever one that you're talking about in positive light.
I think at West Ham he was obviously a big fish in a small pond. He's gone to Arsenal. I think he's an underrated leader in that team as well. And people say 6. I mean, I like him a bit more advanced with that sort of, Thomas Partey's never fit, but when Jorginho came in last year, he was getting more goals, more assists, more impactful in the box from corners and stuff like that. I do like how, as John and Doogie have said, really well at keeping the ball, ticks Arsenal over lovely, brings Saka into the game and make Kai Havertz a better player as well. So it pains me to say it as a Spurs fan, but what Arsenal have is such a nice blend in that midfield and forward line that I feel like, if you put a Caicedo in there or anyone else, I don't think it works without Rice.
Again, though, I still don't think Marino is that answer to kind of. I don't think he's kind of a bit the same as Rice, where they're kind of in between that 6 and that 8. So I'm not sure that does unlock him as much as Arsenal fans think that is going to happen. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's such a difficult one. He is a fantastic player. And it's not even to do with the price tag. I just think it's the way that he gets spoken about in comparison to other players who I think have proved that they are top class. And I just don't think he is world class yet. Still got a lot to prove, but I just don't think he's that level.
Okay, well debated, guys. Especially when you're the only one as well. It's not easy, not easy at all. So I do appreciate that. Getting 6 points, though, from that round is again John. 2 6-pointers in a row. Doing well at the moment, Jonathan. Taking home 5, Doogie Critchley. On 4 is you, Ben, and Sonny is taking home 3. It does mean, Sonny, you will be leaving us here, my friend. But thank you very much. Really appreciate it, Snell Dog.
Thank you.
Yes, Sonny.
You battled well.
It's lonely over here.
Well. I don't like battling for Arsenal either.
Sucks to be on that side.
I'm glad I've gone.
Yeah, I thought I saw a tear at one stage, Sonny, as you said their midfield balance is perfect.
Okay, lads, this one is going to be an interesting one. I want you guys to rank which of these managers has the toughest job. You've got Maresca, you've got Mikel Arteta, Slot, and of course Ten Hag. Who has the toughest job for this season? Without further ado, reveal the boards. Okay, so you guys have actually gone, Arteta and Ten Hag the other way round. You've got Arteta top compared to them having Maresca. Yeah. Let's start with that.
Okay, I think ultimately this is the Premier League quiz and this is the Premier League he's trying to win. So that is the toughest thing to do. The other managers aren't expected to win the Premier League here, I don't think. And that's the reason I got Slot at the bottom, because I think he's got the Liverpool fan base on side already, it seems. He's not got much pressure, he's not made signings, so I don't think there's going to be pressures for him to be up there. Arteta has got to displace arguably the greatest Premier League manager of all time. He's won 4 in a row. He's got to motivate a team that consistently gets to within 2 points of winning the league now last season, who realistically think they should be winning it, and this would be a 3rd year in a row of coming 2nd. So for that reason alone on Arteta, I think it's the toughest job on this board. Maresca in 2nd because I think it's a mess at Chelsea. But ultimately, I don't think anyone's expecting anything from that outside. I think he's got a tough job because the media are going to put pressure on him. But if you're just asking me to argue who the toughest job is, I'd say Arteta.
That's interesting. I think it's just interpretation of the question, because toughest job, yes, in terms of the hardest task, like toppling Man City, probably is harder than finishing the top 4 for United or finishing the top 4 for Liverpool or surviving a season for Maresca. But I think it's got to come down to expectations and how much pressure you're under. I think Arteta could easily survive finishing 2nd. I think he could survive finishing 3rd, to be honest. Maresca, unless they finish in the top 6 or 7, I think he'll probably lose his job. If Ten Hag doesn't improve on 8th, I think he'll lose his job. So I think those are harder jobs than Arteta. I've got Slot bottom because I think he's pretty safe. I think John made very good points about the signings. I think they've got a decent squad. I think people are a bit aware of, the fact Van Dijk and Trent and Salah are a little bit unsettled, or potentially could be unsettled. I think he's got quite a lot of leeway. Maresca feels like he's got the least amount of leeway than Ten Hag for me.
Yeah, I do agree with John. I think Arteta, I've got Maresca top because I think as a manager, I think that's the toughest task in terms of managing that amount of players. It must be an absolute nightmare, whereas Arteta has got full confidence in that squad. It's just about whether he can take that leap to close that gap with Man City. If you're resorting to kind of pickpockets and things like that, just shows how hard the job is. And Arsenal have been brilliant over the last couple of years, and you can feel like they're edging closer, especially when you've got to deal with kind of Pep's reverse psychology of coming out and saying that I'm not motivated to win another league title. It's that constant battle, the mind games and everything. I just think Maresca fundamentally as a manager and as a coach, kind of first and foremost, has got the hardest job. I don't think Arteta's got the hardest job as a coach because he has got full trust in those players already, and he knows that they can bridge that gap. It's just actually about doing it. Slot, totally agree with everything else. He's at the bottom. I think that the pressure isn't actually on him. They haven't signed a player. Like John said, the fans have taken to him very quickly. They will take to him even more after that performance thing against Ipswich at the weekend. First half, not so much. Second half, they were absolutely electric and kind of played in his vision very, very quickly. Ten Hag's a funny one because I think I've seen so many people saying that Ten Hag will be gone by October. I think that for them to back him in the way that they did after the cup final, again, you can question the kind of legitimacy of that, because have you just changed your mind based on a piece of silverware that's now on the table for them? I think that they will. I think Ten Hag will be there the whole season, and I actually think that the way we kind of alluded to it earlier with some of the other questions, the quality of players they're bringing in now, there is actually a vision there. And I'm not saying that Ten Hag is going to rip up trees at United, but that environment is slowly getting that little bit more stable. Whereas I feel like Maresca has certainly got the most unstable one. But that's why I just have Maresca above Arteta, because I think as a coach, trying to imprint your style as a manager that hasn't got much pedigree, I think is really, really tough. Whereas I think Arteta has already done that bit. It's just about those really fine margins, which you can't ignore. But I think that he has full confidence in that squad that they can do it. It's just actually about doing it now.
I think, well, that's why I'm interested with Doogie's Ten Hag. I have to have Ten Hag. You've got Ten Hag in third, right?
Yeah.
I think Maresca's job is harder because I think the way United's transfers have been handled, I think it's a little bit calmer. Everything seems to be running a lot better there. I don't think there's going to be as much pressure on him as I thought maybe pre the transfer window opening. But going back to Arteta's point as well, I think it's not a question of I think Arteta will lose his job. Like you said, I don't think Arteta's in any position. I think he could finish third and they wouldn't lose his job. I agree with that. It's just if he then doesn't climb the mountain and get to that peak again, that's where I think the toughest job comes, where it's that constantly coming up second and not winning the big prize and coming short to Pep, who's one of his biggest, like his friends and one of the people he's worked for. I just think for that reason I have to stick Arteta at the top. Yeah. But it does come down to interpretation, like you said.
I do get it. I just always think the Premier League at the moment for me feels like putting yourself in the best position to win it when Pep leaves, because it's almost impossible to win any league title when he's in it. As is shown in his career, like I think he's only lost it twice across his entire career. So Arteta has put Arsenal in a great position to be the next top team. But I do agree the noise will be very loud if he doesn't win a title, because it's just that FA Cup at the moment when they weren't playing anywhere near their best, and it was a very different side. Yeah,
that wasn't his team. That wasn't Arteta's team. He's built that team now, which is why it will be difficult for him, because we talk about fine margins, but those fine margins, everybody talks about that now. That is those key tiny details are things that make the massive difference. And you can see why he's kind of adopted these kind of unorthodox methods to try and bridge that gap, because it is so hard. But like Doogie says, it's almost a fight, not necessarily between all of these managers, but building that team in the best possible way for when Pep does go. And I think Arteta has already done that, which is why I think part of his job might already be done at Arsenal. Whereas I think for the rest of these managers, obviously Slot hasn't really got anything to prove yet. Ten Hag has got a lot to prove. Maresca hasn't really got that much to prove, but I just come back to the fact that as a coach, that situation is just an absolute nightmare.
Okay, we're going to end it there. We're going to give out some points very, very quickly. Well debated, guys. I'm going to be giving 6 points again to John.
Wow.
Trio. He's done a triple here now. Wow. Done very, very well.
Patrick.
That's great. Especially after, I think you've had 3 in a row now after getting 2 on the first one. So John is on 20 points. I'm going to be giving 5 to Doogie and 4 to Ben, which does mean you're both on 19, but because I've given 4 to you, Ben, You're the one that is leaving, my friend. Well
Pleasure.
done. I do appreciate you being on. Huge. And it's time for the final. John versus Doogie in our final then. And it's start bench release here, a classic. And it's going to be a defender-based one. Saliba, Van Dijk, and Ruben Diaz. Who are you starting? Who are you benching? And who are you releasing? All right, without further ado, guys, please, I've said that so many times, please show your board. Oh, very different as well. Diaz is your bottom, your middle, Van Dijk. Okay, I mean, let's start with VVD then. You're starting him, you're releasing him. Why don't you kick us off with why you're starting him?
I'm starting Virgil van Dijk based off, I mean, this guy is arguably in a Premier League all time. At his peak, which I think he's not at, and I can concede that, he was the most dominant centre-half we've ever seen. But I think since he's returned from injury, last season I think he was really good for Liverpool. Really, really good. In a team that ultimately fell short, but was challenging for most of the season. Saliba I've got on my bench based off of, again, unbelievable performances for Arsenal. Was pretty tough between the two of them. And then I've got Diaz released, just based off of the other two being really good at football.
Fair arguments. I released Van Dijk because if I was building a squad for next season, he's the furthest away from his prime now and probably makes the most sense if you're building a squad for the future as well. Diaz and Saliba was tight. I think Diaz is closer to Saliba and Van Dijk than people give him credit for. But I think at the moment Saliba is operating at a slightly higher level and is maybe slightly more important to his team. I think Ruben Diaz, there's a lot more chop and change. They've probably got better depth at centre-back than Arsenal do, although maybe less so. Now they've got Calafiori and Tamori, not Tamori back, Urian Timber back. But I'm going to go with Saliba ahead of Diaz. I do think Saliba last year was the best of the three. Thought Van Dijk was a very close second. But in terms of long-term, Van Dijk, thank you very much for your services, but you're gone.
I think, well, I agree with you. If it's long-term, if I'm signing Saliba.
But it's for now.
But if it's for now, I think Saliba had a better season than Van Dijk last season. I can see that. I agree. But I just think Virgil van Dijk's ceiling is higher from what we've seen. And that might be unfair because he's older, but he has reached levels that Saliba hasn't. And I think, especially towards the back end of the last season.
in a worse defence? As in, like, is he having to do it? Does Saliba have better defenders around him?
Yeah, Virgil van Dijk for sure. Yeah, definitely. I don't think Liverpool had a defensive midfielder last season. So I think that's a big problem there. And then if you take Van Dijk out of that Liverpool team, they're nowhere near challenging last season. Saliba, I think, is brilliant, is younger, has the potential, but I've seen a higher ceiling from Van Dijk. And if you're asking me a question of a one-off season, who do I want? I'm going to go with Van Dijk based off of his history.
I was squad building. I was looking at the coppers. I was being, I was trying to save you money, Zach.
Well, as a Chelsea fan, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter about the money.
Money is not a thing.
Exactly.
You get a new squad every season.
Yeah.
Okay then, boys. Well battled. Well done for getting to the final. But I'm going to give this one to John. Congratulations, mate.
4 in a row.
Congratulations. Yeah. 4 in a row,
I think
6
he
points in a
fancies
row.
me.
Well done, mate. We're in the video
mate.
now because I can also hear the Hoover coming over to take
sounds like
over
we're
the
under
studio.
attack.
But boys, thank you so much for coming on the video. Guys, make sure you check out everybody in the links below, in the description. I'll have everybody tagged there. Thank you, lads. I do appreciate it. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel for more. And let me know some other questions and other guests as well you'd like to see on the channel. We'll see you guys very, very soon.